and thank you for coming to this week's Success Workshop from the Learning Commons. Our topic this week is on creating your final exam study plan. And it's sort of shocking that there are just 2 more weeks left before we get to finals. And that means that at this point, it's time to do 3 things. So you need to plan, which is what we're going to talk about today. But then it's about getting prepared and then getting started on all of the work that goes into passing those final exams. And I thought that this topic would be appropriate to present this week as we head into these final weeks of class. And I've even created a custom resource for all who are in attendance today. And I'm going to make sure to send that out through email so that you all have it, so that you could create your own final exam study plan heading into next week. So during today's presentation, we are going to cover a few different topics. First, we're going to talk about how to develop those SMART goals as you head into finals week. And then we're going to move into more of the specifics of creating that study plan. We're going to talk about the how and when of, studying for those finals, what you should be doing during finals week, what you should be doing before finals week. But before we get started, you both know who I am, but I went ahead and put my information up on the screen here. My name is Sam. I'm a success coach here in the Learning Commons. And as you know, my job is just to help students in any way that I can in order for them to be successful in class. So let's go ahead and discuss our first topic, which is setting those SMART goals heading into finals week. And you've probably heard of SMART goals before. You've probably taken a college success class where you've covered SMART goals in depth. And usually they have to do with these long-term goals. But I want to talk about them in the context of short-term goals and goals for finals week. As you probably know, SMART is an acronym that stands for specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and timely. And I'm going to go through each of these one by one, and hopefully with these descriptions, you can start creating some of your own SMART goals as you head into the next few weeks. So I mentioned S stands for specific. So when creating your goal, you need to state exactly what it is that you're hoping to accomplish, and you have to use action words. So it wouldn't be appropriate to say, for example, pass my class. You want to be specific. So I want to pass my class with a B, and I need to get a example grade. I need to get a 70 on the final in order to make it. So you have to be really specific there when setting that goal. M then stands for measurable. So there needs to be a way for you to figure out whether you've actually met that goal. So by setting that goal of I want to make a B in the class and I want to get a 70 on the final exam, well, those are 2 very measurable things. I know whether or not I got a B in the class, and I know whether or not I made a 70 or above on the final. So you want to select these measurable things as you are setting your goal. Next, the goal needs to be attainable. And so that means that your goal has to be something that you can actually accomplish. And it's not something that's just out of this world. So an example of this could be, I want to get 100% in my class. I don't want to miss any points at all, where we're here at the very end of the term and maybe you've already missed out on some points. That would be unattainable at this point in the semester. So you have to be realistic as you're setting that goal. It also has to be something that is relevant to your class or to your final. So for example, you shouldn't say your goal for finals week is to clean your apartment. Okay, well, that's nice. You should probably clean your apartment anyway, but it doesn't make any sense when you're thinking of finals week. You need to set a goal related to your final. And then lastly, your goal will need to be timely. So this is when you state when you are going to accomplish that goal. So what is my timeline? What is my time limit? And I'm really talking about a date or a time frame for completing the goal. So I am going to start studying for this exam on Tuesday, next Tuesday. Like that is a time frame of I am going to start studying by that day. All right, so we talked about SMART goals. Let's go ahead and talk about an example goal that you might want to set for yourself. So I mentioned that exam grade as being a sort of goal, and that's a really common goal that students set for themselves as they head into exam week. And if this is a goal that you would like to set for yourself, then you should first ask yourself what grade you need to achieve on the exam in order to get the grade that you want in the class. And so there are a few ways you can do this. I recommend going into the Canvas Gradebook. I think that it's a very useful tool because it allows you to add in these what if scores. If I get this score on the exam, what will my final grade be? So go ahead and add in the grade that you're seeking on the exam, and it's going to total for you that overall grade for the class. And if you're feeling a little bit uncomfortable with that, you're not certain that the grading scale is right, you don't know if the gradebook is up to date, you can always drop into your professor's office hours to get a better idea, or even set up a time with a coach, a success coach in the Learning Commons, and we could go through it together and see where you currently are in your class. All right, so there are a few things that you may want to consider before making that SMART goal. If it's a goal about a grade on an exam, awesome, but of course there are factors to consider. You need to consider your own motivation. So ask yourself, how much time and effort are you willing to commit to this goal? If your goal is to get a B on the final exam, are you willing to put in the time and the effort that will get you that B to where you can achieve that B? And usually, it's actually pretty funny. I usually ask students, you know, on a scale of 1 to 10, where would you rate your effort for preparing for that test? And sometimes they'll say, oh, I feel like maybe it was a 6, somewhere around there, maybe a 5 or a 6. Then I'll ask them, well, what grade did you get on the test? Well, if they said a 6, usually it's somewhere around a 60% range. So it usually directly shows in that grade. So if your goal is a B, well, are you willing to put in the effort of an 8? All right, so I've also worked with many students on study and test taking skills, and you really need to plan ahead as you are setting these goals as well. And that's where we're going to move into the study plan, because this is going to be one piece of creating that SMART goal. All right, so I mentioned there are 2 more full weeks of class, and then we've got exam week, so that's a total of 3 more weeks of the semester. And I've listed them out here with the dates, and we're going to look at each of these weeks one by one to talk about the best use of your time during these weeks. And I recommend starting next Monday. So I know that seems early, but I'm not asking you to study right away. What I'm asking you to do during week 1, so starting April 12th, is to really focus on the planning piece of it all. And you have a full week to do it. From April 12th to April 18th, you're going to focus on planning. Then in week 2, that's where we're going to start that study time. And I always recommend that you try to start studying 7 days in advance of the exam. And so we can assume that in week 2, that's when we're really going to start studying for that final exam. And then April 26th, that's going to kick off exam week. And we'll talk a little bit about the do's and don'ts for exam week. So let's begin with week 1. That's April 12th to April 18th. And as you can see in the background, you see this final study plan calendar. This is the resource that I've created, and I am going to send out to the both of you when we're done with the workshop today. All right, so the first step during week 1, so starting on Monday, is to organize your materials and to plan. And you should first make a list of all of the materials that you have on hand to study from, but you should also take it a step further and actually group these items together. So if you're not already keeping them in a folder on your computer, or if you've not printed them out and they're in a binder or something like this, then you want to go ahead and organize them now. So if you have class notes, put them in a folder and put them in chronological order, so in date order. This could include your own personal notes. It could be teacher notes, lecture videos, notes from online, different videos, your textbook, if your teacher offers those PowerPoints, study guides, handouts, different homework. All of these are materials that you should be organizing in the next week so that you know what you have to study from. Because honestly, I cannot think of anything more time consuming than going to study and not knowing where everything is, or having to click on 1,000 different links in order to find a video that I need, or that handout I need, or the study guide, or where on Canvas can I find the lectures. You want to spend next week putting that together. My next piece of advice is, in addition to finding all of those notes and videos and PowerPoints, is that you also take a look at your syllabus. Take a look at it one more time. And yes, I know you've probably read over your syllabus during like the first week of class. You probably haven't looked at it since then, but I want you to pay special attention to, it's usually on the first page, but they're called course objectives or class objectives. And these objectives are pretty much an outline of what your professor wants you to get out of this class. And oftentimes this will give you a sneak peek of what is going to be covered on your exam. So go ahead, head back into the syllabus, read over those objectives and see if there's anything that you can detect as being new material that is going to be on that exam. Also during week 1, so next week, you should try to organize and get to know the specifics of the final. So is it going to be like certain chapters or modules, or is it going to be everything from day 1 to final day of class? Usually it's going to be that final unit, but different classes are different. So figure that one out. Do you know the exam format? You know, most professors use the same format throughout the semester. So is it multiple choice? Are there going to be free response questions? Because the format of the test really is going to impact how you prepare for it. And then last, you should think about your time limit. So do you have 60 minutes to complete 40 questions, 30 questions, 20 questions? This is going to help you figure out how much time you are going to have per question, so that when you are studying, you can make sure you're getting through the material fast enough. You can sort of time yourself to see if you're getting through the material in an adequate amount of time. Something else to think about is, are you required to use honor lock? Because that comes with its own special considerations, things you need to think about. Is your internet secure enough? Do I need to make sure that my webcam is working? You know, make sure you have your ID on you. All of these things you also have to think about when using honor lock. And I feel like I'm obligated to also mention that if you are worried about either the internet connection, webcam, you know, anything about honor lock, that we do have honor lock rooms here in the Learning Commons as well as in the library that you are welcome to use as students. All right, also during week 1, we are going back to that planning element, is that you need to think about your study method. You don't have to put it in motion, you don't have to start studying yet, but start making some decisions. First, how are you planning to study? Is it that you want to use flashcards? Because if so, then maybe that means you order some flashcards online, you look into different flashcard tools on the internet, you go to the store and buy some paper flashcards. Do you want to fill out a study guide? Great. Where is the study guide? What is the format of it? Does it cover everything that's going to be on that exam? Do you want to create a study group? Well, awesome. Who's going to be in that study group? You just want to spend your time, a little bit of time planning, so that when it does come to the week before finals, you don't have to think about all these things. All of these decisions are already made. And speaking of which, and this is often the hardest one, you should also choose what sort of stress management method you want to use during finals week. Because finals and studying for finals can be a really stressful time. So if you take a little bit of time, you know, a little bit removed from the exam, and identify, one, how you are going to eliminate distractions that come up, how you're going to decrease those stress levels while you're studying or while you're taking the exam. It takes all of the guesswork out of it. You don't have to make so many decisions when it comes to exam week. Think about it now. Write it down somewhere, and then hopefully later you could just put it into action. You don't have to worry about that dreaded anxiety leading up to a test. All right, and the last step during week 1 is to think about a plan for weeks 2 and week 3. So in week 2, this is where I mentioned you focus on that study time. So I want you to start with the end goal in mind and sort of work backwards from there. So you want to mark on your week 3 calendar, this is my exam date, and then go ahead and work backwards from there. If my test is on Tuesday, then I know that on Sunday, the Sunday before, I want to feel really prepared. I know that Saturday, I want to spend some time reading. I know that the Friday before, I want to focus on my flashcards. You see how you're working backwards here, all leading up to that exam on Tuesday. And this is something that I often call it chopping up these large tasks into smaller pieces, but it's also called distributed practice. So distributing the amount of time that you spend practicing the material across different periods of time. And then you also want to make sure that you're specific about the topic. So on week 2, I would caution you against just writing study on a day. So it's like on Monday, study, Tuesday, study, Wednesday, study. No, be a little bit more specific. You could write down MGF 1106 study time or MAC 1105 study time, and move on to the next day. Okay, MAC 1105 flashcards or practice test. You get what I'm saying. Be a little bit more specific so you know exactly what you'll be doing on that day instead of having to guess what you meant a couple of weeks ago. All right, and then in week 3, AKA finals week, that's where you want to plan out just 3 things. So a very quick review of the material. This is not the time for that heavy study session. You don't want to cram the night before. Simply review. You want to relax, so make sure that you're planning in some of those stress management activities during week 3, and then just prepare yourself for that final. So after combining all these tips, this is potentially what your week 1 final exam study plan could look like. Even though it appears that you're completing a lot of things throughout the week, it really is just very short tasks. So for example, on Monday, my selected task is I'm just gonna pull all of the syllabus from Canvas. That'll take me maybe 5 minutes. So you see, that's not a time-consuming activity. On Tuesday, I wanna go ahead and just write down when all of my final exams are. Once again, if I have the syllabus right there in front of me, that's probably going to be a very quick task, probably only 5 minutes. On Wednesday, I'm going to see if I can find out more information on the format of the test, what chapters or modules will be on that test, if there are going to be any time limits. Once again, that won't take very long. Thursday, that's where I'm going to think a little bit more about different study methods. Maybe I already have something in mind or something that's worked for me in the past. And so that may take a little bit longer, but it is a worthwhile task to undertake. And then on Friday, organizing all my notes. Perhaps you're already doing this, and if so, awesome. And then on Saturday, that's where I'm going to take some time to schedule out week 2 and week 3. So like I said, even though it appears you're doing something on every day, it's really just a small thing on every day. When you distribute the work across a longer period of time, you're never left with too much on your plate. Awesome. So we've covered week 1. Let's go ahead and move on to week 2. So week 2 is also the final week of classes. And this is going to be a crucial time to start studying for those exams. So go ahead and think back to that goal that you set for yourself. I want to get a B in the class, or I want to be on the final. So this is where you really need to maximize that effort. Remember, if you want a B on the test, then you need to put in at least that 8 of effort. Because if you were to wait until, say, the Sunday before your exam, or even the Monday before your exam during exam week, it's going to be crunch time. You're not going to have the time to put in the effort needed to really pass that exam. All right, so I'm often asked by students when we're working on things like study skills, when is the best time to study? You know, here's what I have going on during the day. When is the best time for me to study? And to be honest, there really is not a best time. It's not a one-size-fits-all thing. And it's going to be very different depending on your own circumstances. I know a lot of students work, a lot have family obligations, other classes that they're attending. And so what's most important is that you're choosing a time when, 1, you are most alert. So when are you most awake, ready to get things done? 2, when are you free from those distractions? So is there a time where perhaps it's a bit quieter, or a time where you feel more comfortable putting your phone away, you know, out of sight, out of mind? And then 3, that you have enough time to dedicate towards studying. So you don't want to sit down and start studying in the 10 minutes between class 1 and class 2. You want to have enough time to really dedicate towards that quality study time. And most students report that this is somewhere between the hours of 11 a.m. and 8 p.m. So that's a pretty wide range, and you may fall outside of that range. Maybe you're an early in the morning kind of person. I know I'm a morning person, not really one for studying in the evening. I know that if I wait that long, that it's not going to be as high quality than if I did it first thing in the day. But you might be the exact opposite. And so figure out when is that best time for you, when you are alert, free of distractions, and have enough time. All right, and most importantly, it is really important to schedule in breaks as well. I think that breaks are really important for sustaining yourself and for maintaining momentum as you are studying. And so I have 3 rules for taking breaks. The first is that for every 30 minutes that you spend studying, so high quality studying where you're undistracted and focused, go ahead and give yourself about a 5 to 10 minute break. So in this 5 to 10 minutes, you can give into those distractions, you can do whatever you want, but make sure you set an alarm for yourself. And after that 5 to 10 minutes is up, get back to it, because after you study for 30 more minutes, you get the same break over again. And you'll probably find that that 30 minutes really flies by as you are focusing in on the material. Then for every 3 hours of study time, so if you're deciding to embark on a marathon study session, it's been 3 hours, you've given yourself breaks every 30 minutes. But after you reach that 3-hour mark, go ahead and give yourself an extended, and I'm meaning like over an hour break. Like you should put it away until a later time. And like I said, the reason for it is you don't want to burn out when it comes to reviewing the material. You don't want to overdo it. After 3 hours, even if you are taking breaks, you're probably a bit tired of looking at the material. It is best to put it away because of number 3 here, which is that if you feel yourself getting distracted for absolutely any reason, you just start to lose focus, you're tired, your vision starts to go a little blurry because you've been looking at the screen too long, then just stop. Just go ahead and stop studying. You know, do not pass go, do not collect $200. The reason for this is that if you continue studying after this point, what is going to happen is you're going to feel this false sense of confidence. Say that you're feeling distracted and you're going over chapter 8 of the textbook. You're only half reading, but you're telling yourself you're getting through it. You're maybe watching the video, but your mind's somewhere else, or you're on your phone while you're watching the video. And then when you're done, you'll say, okay, I'm done with chapter 8, time to move on to chapter 9. But in reality, you didn't spend that quality time getting through chapter 8. And so it really is best to put it down, put it away, and come back to it when you are feeling more alert, when you're free of those distractions, and when you have enough time to dedicate towards that studying. All right, so now to cover just a few quick study methods that you may want to consider for week 2. The first one is called spaced repetition, and this is a study method that uses flashcards. And I think that flashcards are, it's sort of a tried and true method for studying, especially when you have to memorize a large amount of material. And the idea of spaced repetition is that material that is either newer material or is more difficult for you. So you've gotten questions wrong in the past, maybe you find it difficult on the homework. That's stuff that you want to review more frequently. On the flip side, things that are older, or maybe they're less difficult, maybe they're just easy for you, those can be reviewed less frequently. So as you can see on the PowerPoint slide, everything starts out, all the flashcards start out in pile number 1, which is to review every day. Well, you review the flashcards on day 1, and there are some that you're going to get right, and there are some that you're going to get wrong. For all of the ones that you get right, that's where you're going to move it down the line. Now these are flashcards that I don't have to worry about tomorrow. Let's go ahead and move them to every other day. Awesome. So tomorrow I'm going to review all of the ones that I got wrong. Same idea. If I get it right, then I'm going to move it down the line. However, the opposite's true as well. So if I've reviewed a flashcard a few times, I've gotten it right every time, and I'm now reviewing it only once a week. If I get it wrong, well, that means I need to push it back a little bit. Maybe I was reviewing it once a week, but now I have to review it every other day because I have to commit it back to memory. So like I said, this is just one study method using flashcards. There's also another method, such as the easy, moderate, hard study outline or organization tool. You should be able to see an image of it here. But the idea of this is that you go ahead and read through very briefly your notes, your study guides. Maybe you take a look at the textbook and you read through any headers or subheaders that you can find. And for the concepts or headers or key terms that you feel really confident about, the ones that you already know, go ahead and write those down in the easy column. Go ahead and make a list. And you don't really have to review these. You already know it. And so you can sort of rest assured that this is material you don't have to cover that in depth. Now, if you go through all of those things and there are things that maybe you feel like okay about, it's not that easy. You have to work a little bit to remember it, but it's not necessarily difficult. Well, go ahead and write it in the moderate column, because this might be material that you do a partial reread of the chapter, or you watch the lecture video or something along those lines. Look for tutoring, talk to your professor, go ahead and make that list. And then the final is the hard column. And this is where you're going to write down, like I said, all of those concepts, questions, headers, any material that is really difficult for you. And everything in this column, this is where you really need to focus your study time. Go down the list and try to move it down the line. What's hard, the goal is to get it over to the moderate column. And then the goal is to get it over to the easy column. So everything that's in hard, you really want to do a full reread, really play close attention to the lecture videos, download the PowerPoints, do a little bit of online research, watch any videos, speak with your professor, look for tutoring. Any of those things are going to help you to better understand what you've organized into the hard column. All right, and then the last study method that you may want to consider during week 2 is to create your own study cheat sheet. And obviously, I'm not advocating for you to actually use this on the exam, but but it is a study method that students use and find success with, particularly in science classes, although it could be used in pretty much any class. So I don't know if this has ever happened to you, but I remember way back in high school that we were often told that we could create a cheat sheet that we could use on the exam. And the idea was you can fill an entire side of a page, just one side of the page. And as long as we could fit it all on that one page, then we could go ahead and use it on the exam. And so you'd spend all your time writing all those little details onto that piece of paper so that you could fit everything. It's also a challenge. You have to prioritize your space. And so you really have to think about what is most important, what do I not really know yet, and what do I need to be reminded of on test day? Just the simple act of writing it down is going to get that brain working. Those cogs are going to start to turn, and you're going to find that you're committing those things to your long-term memory. You're sort of working through the material to create this cheat sheet. It's going to help you not just study, but like I said, learn and commit all of that material into your long-term memory. All right, and so regardless of which study method you choose, in your last 10 minutes, I would challenge you to go ahead and quiz yourself on everything that you've just studied. Learning itself is much more than just taking in the information. As you know, you could be sitting in lecture and something goes in one ear and right out the other. What's most important is that you're able to recall the material, meaning that when you get to exam day, you remember exactly what you learned in class. You're able to pull it out of that smart brain of yours and get it onto the exam. And so in these last 10 minutes of your study time, this is where you could really test yourself. Can I recall the information that I just learned? If the answer is yes, awesome. You've accomplished the overall goal of your study time, which is to learn. But if you quiz yourself and you find that you get questions wrong, well, then it's back to the drawing board. You know, you have to review this material again. It's a good thing though, because it's better to figure that out now than on test day. So quiz yourself, it's going to help you out in the long run. All right, and my final tips for week 2 are to 1, seek tutoring if you need it through the Learning Commons. Make sure you're asking those questions. Don't be afraid to work with a tutor. You know, they are happy to assist you in any way that they can. And then also don't be afraid of speaking with your professor during their office hours to get any of those last minute questions answered. 2, so I know that I wrote here to study in the same location and under the same time limits as test day. So it's actually really good to mix things up sometimes. So to have, say, 2 different places to study. But when it comes down to it, if you're taking a practice test or you're quizzing yourself, try and study in the same location that you plan on taking that exam. Because sometimes you can remember things just based on the memory of the way that the room feels, the way that the room looks, the way that the room smells. Sometimes these other memories can help jog our memory on the material. And then 3, if there are test reviews offered for your class that you're preparing for, I know that the Learning Commons offers many test reviews specifically in the areas of math. So if they're being offered and you can attend them, then I highly recommend it. Some of them are recorded, whereas some of them aren't. You know, some professors or specialists prefer not to record them, but some of them do. So if you do miss out, feel free to ask. I'm happy to look around for recording links or to go straight to the source. So if you have any questions about those test reviews, just let me know. All right, so to give you a better idea of what the final exam study plan week 2 would look like, here's an example. Let's say I have 2 final exams. I've got my Intro to Humanities, I got my Intermediate Algebra. You can see that I'm spacing things out every day. I'm not just dedicating one whole day to humanities and one whole day to math. I'm distributing my practice across a number of days, and I'm using a number of different methods. I'm looking for tutoring, I'm looking at my notes, I'm using flashcards, all of these different things all planned out for week 2. All right, so we've covered week 1 and week 2. Let's go ahead and talk about finals week. That will run from April 26th to April 30th. I want to stress this pretty much more than anything, but you don't want to wait until finals week to start planning, studying, and preparing for these exams. That is going to cause a lot of stress and a lot of work for you. And ultimately, it might not lead to the success that you're looking for, which is ultimately what you're after. You wouldn't be here if you weren't interested in passing your class. And so finals week needs to be about 3 things. It needs to be about reviewing. So once again, when I say reviewing, this is not your hard study time, like your marathon study time. You're simply, reviewing your notes. Maybe you're watching a few videos, attending those test reviews, going through those flashcards one more time. Second, this is where we're really going to put those stress management techniques into action. You've set up your stress management plan in week 1. Well, let's make sure we're following through in week 3. You want to follow a normal sleep schedule, a normal eating schedule. This is not the time to switch things up. It's not the time to decide that 4 a.m. is your new bedtime. You want to follow your normal schedule and make sure that you are setting time aside for you to relax and practice stress management. And then third, you want to prepare yourself for taking this exam. And this is going to be different than reviewing. Preparing is more of pretty much preparing yourself to go into the exam. Do I see myself as being successful? On a scale of 1 to 10, where would I rate my study effort and study time? Engage in positive self-talk. Tell yourself you can do it, because oftentimes a negative mindset can impact us negatively. And ultimately, you want to be confident in the effort and the time that you have put into studying and in what you know. So let's go ahead and take a final look at this final exam study plan for week 3. So I've included time to relax as well as times for me to do a quick review of the material. And I've also included the dates and times of all of my final exams. And that's all I have. I do want to make sure that you both get a copy of the final exam study planner. And I want to thank you for attending tonight's workshop. If you have absolutely any questions as we do lead up to finals, whether it's needing any assistance in filling out the final exam study plan, I'm happy to do that with you. We could create sort of a one-on-one study plan for you. I know I'm meeting with both of you, within the next week. So if this is something you want to chat more about, just let me know. You are welcome to reach out to me at, my phone number is right there on the screen, and you'll see that I've also have an updated email address. Of course, if you use the old one, that's totally fine too. Go to the same place, but you are free to go. And I want to thank you once